Hey, well, welcome to House Church tonight. And I want to tell you, I love House Church. Man, I need to give a shout out to my house church. I think we've got the best one. But listen, hey, tonight we've got a message really that is meant to encourage you, because I'm going to show you a text where Jesus takes the traditional family model, and in so many ways, he blows it up and he says, family is more than just your bloodline. Family is a group of people that share a common mission. And so I have seen this in House Church. You guys live this out so well, where you say, listen, we're family around here tonight. It's not just about what family you're from, where you grew up, but man, one thing that brings us together is our common faith. And so I'm gonna show you where we get this from. I really think this is a confusing passage. I've read this before and wonder, what does this mean? And so, man, I think you're gonna enjoy tonight getting some clarity on this. We're gonna be in Matthew 12, starting at verse 46. It says, while Jesus was still speaking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting him to come speak to them. Now, little context for you. Jesus had been teaching. He'd been doing miracles, but man, he was getting pretty radical. And his family showed up to really have an intervention, to say, man, we've got to pull you away from this. We need a word with you. Well, someone told Jesus, hey, your mom and your brothers, they're standing outside. They want to speak to you. In verse 48, he replied to him. He said, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Pointing to his disciples, he said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother. Now, that's a different way to think about family. And today I want to give you a few things that are going to help you, a few principles to build around when it comes to family. The first is this: family is meant to be a team. Now, listen, when you think team, I don't want you to think dysfunction. I want you to think a group of individuals that are brought together for a common mission and a common purpose. And I want to tell you, that is so hard. Like, I want you to think about how quickly our families take off in different directions. The challenge to bring your family together under one common mission is a huge challenge, and it's not easy. I want you to take you back to the assembly line days. Henry Ford, he created the assembly line process to give everyone a lane, to give everyone a task, and they really don't come together much. Instead, we separate everybody out because we can produce the most. It's called multitasking, right? One of the challenges to bring your family back together is to say, I'm gonna break the routines, I'm gonna break the habits, and I'm gonna do all I can to bring us back together as a family. One of the things you need to know as you do that is we need to begin to understand our team. I love the example. Maybe you know Tim Duncan, he played for the Spurs, and it was said that his head coach used to bring him a piece of carrot cake every night before he played an away game. Well, why did he do that? Because he knew his player, he knew his team, and he knew what they needed. One of the things my family's doing right now is puzzles and little 500 or 300 piece jigsaw puzzles. And I'm so bad at forcing these puzzle pieces into places they don't go. And one of the things I've got to do is step back and say, man, listen, I need to know and understand my players. I need to know and understand the team and the family that God's given me, and how can I encourage them? How can I lead them? How can I put them where they belong and places where they're going to really thrive? To do that, we got to know our players. We got to know our team. The first thing is to begin to look at your family as a team, and then to challenge you with the challenge to bring them together. One thing that brings them together is to see and to have a common mission. Now, this is hard because you've got different ages, you've got different interests, you've got boys and girls in different generations, and trying to find a common mission can be difficult. But one of the things that we're called to do is to realize that family is to model God. God was 3 in 1, it's the Trinity. Remember the first thing God did when he created man, he looked at it, he said, this is not good. Man does not need to be alone. And he recognized that he needed a helper. He needed someone to be with him. And then he created marriage. And the whole thing about marriage, he said, we're gonna take 2 people and make them one. That's so difficult, that's so hard. But the idea is that we have a common mission that keeps us glued together. It keeps us coming back to the thing that God's called us to do. Now let me ask you this. Maybe you've experienced what I think sometimes I've experienced. Katie and I have been talking about this. Maybe it's a little bit of mission drift. Organizations experience it. Churches can experience it. And I think families can experience it. You've experienced mission drift if you look up and you realize the only thing that brings you together is school, activities, carpool, family functions. Nothing about those things are bad. But I need you to know, as a family, we were called for more. Think about Jesus. He said, listen, I came I came to serve, not to be served. It's hard to even say, because the idea is that we as a family, if we're gonna not experience mission drift, then we've got to be about some bigger things than just our needs and our wants. We've got to be about some kingdom causes. Those are the things that bring us together and make us families when we're doing the will of God. And I'm not saying those things aren't the will of God. God uses you in your school and in your sports and on your teams. But I do think we have a role to disciple. That's the third thing about a family, is we're meant to disciple each other. We're meant to disciple one another. You're so good at this, man. You disciple your kids how to hit the baseball. You disciple them how to take the kick. You disciple them how to study at school. You disciple them when it comes to how to save money. But listen, part of our role, if we're gonna have a healthy family, is we lean in and we disciple each other spiritually. We lean in and we grow. I love what it says, just a simple definition, a simple way to think about discipleship. John 1:39 says, come and you will see. And you get that, you teach your kids all these different things, but the question is, are you discipling them spiritually? Are you leaning into who they are in Christ? I'm gonna share with you a quote, and this is from the book called Discipleship, creative title, but by Matt Chandler. It's a great tool, it's a great book, where he says, observing your daily or ordinary example of life with God will have one of the most significant spiritually formative impacts on your kid. Some of your best lessons as a parent are going to be habitually gleaned by your kids as opposed to explicitly explained. Ooh, it's a mouthful, but it's really powerful, because what he's saying is our kids are always watching. And we begin to model to them what it looks like. Man, model to them by you having a faith that is growing. Model to them by you leaning into and caring for your partner. Model to them, listen, if you've been divorced and your family is split, model to them what it looks like to still respect them and honor them with your words and your actions. Model to them by showing, man, listen, I'm not just teaching this, but I'm living this life of faith. And then invite them into that and begin to disciple them. Fourth thing that we see that family is meant for those with a common faith. Now, I love this about this passage, because Jesus redefines family. And he says in this moment that family is for, number one, whosoever. That's a pretty inclusive comment, right? Whosoever believes and does the will of God. So it starts out with whosoever. That's all the children of the world. Red and yellow, black and white, rich and poor, blood type, class, country. No. Only thing that matters, whosoever. Any child of God can be a part of our family. Here's the exclusive part, if they're doing the will of God. So listen, I need to encourage you, sitting around tonight as you discuss this, your family. I love this in baptism when we ask them, so who's the Lord and Savior of your life? And they say, Jesus Christ. That's their way of saying, I'm gonna do the will of God. And then we say, it's my privilege to get to baptize you today, my brother or my sister. That's who you are. Look around the circle. Your family. And I need you to hear me say, listen, it's a gift. You didn't choose your family. God put you in your family. It's a gift when it comes to your family of faith. You didn't really choose this family. This is where God's put you. But now that he's put you here, I want to challenge you, man, would you contribute? Maybe you know this, man. No one likes the family member that never shows up. No one likes the family member that they just come and, man, they don't contribute anything. You've been bringing paper plates every week. Man, it's time to bring some drinks. It's time to go to the next level where you begin to contribute. Just this past Sunday, I was sitting in the atrium at Lincoln Road, and we had someone walk in that just had gone through just trauma in their family. Someone in their family committed suicide. And man, I wanted to do all I could in that moment, but I had to come kind of lead the experience. And there was a couple, Marlon and Vicky Laird, they're in my house church. They walked in right at the same time. And it was a moment that because they were present, because they were contributors, because they were leaning into their faith family, I could take this young lady and man, I could connect her with the people of faith that could love her and encourage her in the midst of her tragedy. She no longer was alone. She now had a faith family. Listen, your faith family matters. I want to encourage you to keep leaning in, keep meeting each other's needs, keep understanding and discovering ways that you can encourage your family. Here's my last verse. I'm going to close with this, and it's in 2 Corinthians, and Paul is talking about some things he struggled with, some things that have gotten in the way of him being who God created him to be, and maybe you get that when it comes to family. Maybe you've made some mistakes. Here's what he says. He says, this is Jesus speaking to him. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. When I am weak, then I'm strong. No matter what your story has been, God can redeem your family, and you are a part of a faith family. Enjoy tonight.